Stuart, you said something, and I want Max to be able to touch on this as well because I think it's really important. You said you've taken more of a proactive
Yeah.
stance than a reactive stance. Expand on that. What do you mean by being proactive versus reactive? And once he answers that, Max, describe the difference between engaging with a landowner who's being proactive versus a landowner who might be reactive, just waiting for something to happen.
Well, I think in terms of reactive, if I think about all the things that had happened, somebody would stop and say, "Hey, have you ever thought about selling the timber on that land? Hey, there's going to be a public hearing because there's going to be a utility going through your land." Um, when cell phones became a thing, in the early 2000s, it's just because we had property that had the highest elevation. We weren't doing anything. We were just responding to market conditions. Nothing like LandGate was available at that time that could give you an idea of whether or not your property had value in some of these verticals. So from a proactive nature, I said, all right, well, now's the time in life, I think, that I need to be proactive about it. I'm not getting any younger. I don't want my kids to have to deal with some of this stuff. I want to try and maximize it. And so back to what I was saying before, I started doing a lot of reading, um, talking to people, and trying to create something from a more marketing promotional sense that I could share with people. So like I said, the video, letting people know about it. Again, not necessarily putting it on the market or working with a real estate agent, but just being kind of self promoter of what it is, and kind of take it on yourself to understand, what the opportunities may be out there. I mean, we've looked at solar, it didn't work at that time. We've looked at mineral rights, didn't think that was the best at that particular time. Although we may have to come back to it because the largest uranium deposit in North America is in our county. And with the way data centers are going, and in order to fuel them, there's not enough. I mean, you're going to have to go nuclear, and what fuels nuclear is uranium. So I can imagine there's something coming in Pittsylvania County pretty soon related to that. I mean, we looked at storage units, boat storage, RV storage, all these types of things. It's just being proactive about what makes the most sense in this. And I think the biggest thing is just like in life, everyone has a coach or an expert. So, my carbon guy now is Max, if I want to know about it. Just like my timber consultant or financial consultant, or a dietitian or a physical therapist. You got to have all these people that know more than you, and you're basically a project manager within this. So that's the way I look at it from this land. There's 15, 20 plus different things that you can get. Some of it may not work at that particular time, but I'm going to go to someone that knows more than me to kind of help. And fortunately, I found a lot of those individuals, but that was not always the case. So like the cell tower in 03-ish, somewhere 04 maybe, we didn't know what it was. Do you really want this? Am I going to get cancer because of the cell phone? You didn't know at that time. And then when you try to get somebody to represent you, no one really knew anything about it. It was Verizon. All the attorneys already had a conflict because they were representing Verizon for some other. So you were basically out on an island. I couldn't find anybody. 15 years later, we renegotiated with the company that bought it from Verizon through a guy I found in Nashville, Vertical Consultants. And he gave us a hell of a better deal than we could have gotten before. So, my suggestion is let the Maxes of the worlds and Joshes and Craigs and all the other people that you have, real estate agents, accountants, let them help you, because you may be actively managing your farm, or you may have another more demanding job, or taking care of elderly parents or small children. You don't have time, execute your network in order to let them help you find some of these revenue streams.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm touching on too. Build your network. In this case, LandGate's helping build that network, and then brand yourself. And like, what are those helpful tags that Stuart did? A lot of, Max, you can talk about what enticed you to see Stuart's land highlighted from you on our marketplace that Stuart went, which was like, what's my land worth for this? Found LandGate.
Yeah, and I think when we think about being proactive, I think of it in kind of two things. There's the really, the first thing Stuart did was just the way that he presented his land and his project, clearly putting care into it. And then when I reach out, being responsive, being informative, I could tell from the background and the thought in that conversation. But, you know, from our perspective, at times it feels like for me, I'm in the middle of 1,000 different conversations. And so, you know, Josh and I and our team, we do so much work in developing these projects, but we do need landowners to, you know, meet us halfway. So it's so helpful when landowners take initiative, reach out, follow up with us, check in. You know, that just helps things move along so much. And, you know, Stuart can speak to how relatively easy we make it by, you know, doing so much of the work and dealing with the legal, putting, you know, the estimates together, building all of that. But it's really helpful, I think, particularly if you're a smaller landowner. I will spend a little more time and energy chasing a landowner who has a few thousand acres. When you have a couple hundred acres, it really makes all the difference when you kind of take that initiative and are proactive and are kind of transparent about what you need. The other part of being proactive, though, is understanding in kind of the way that you're managing your land that your forest is creating carbon value. And so it's kind of up to you whether or not that makes sense for you to realize it. One of the other things that was, you know, unique about Stuart is, y'all had 3 properties and we only ended up doing projects on 2 of them. And it was really understanding that, like, you know, a carbon project does not make sense for every forest. It doesn't make sense for every landowner, but it is a tool. And there may be a stand or a section that, you know, hey, you know, this is the area we're not really interested in harvesting this timber. This property is more about hunting and recreation, or this property's been in our family so long, it's our responsibility to continue taking care of it for the next generation. And so there's so much carbon value being created, and to, instead of just kind of sitting back and letting that value accrue without taking advantage of it, being proactive, at least understanding and finding out what is the carbon value.
I think I just wanted to say one thing about the proactive thing. That LandGate is really great, I think, for landowners, like you were saying, Stuart, to see all your different options. And then what we can see as a user of LandGate is like people who have expressed interest in a carbon project. So when we get a contact and when we talk to somebody like Stuart, it's not just like a cold contact or somebody just wandering in off the street or whatever. We know that they have expressed interest in this. So it's worth our time and effort to go after these folks and educate and spend time on the phone and talking to you and stuff like that. So it really helps us because we don't have a huge staff. You know, we try to be as efficient as possible to return as much value to the landowners as we can. And so I would really encourage people to use this platform, and I'm not getting paid to say that. Like it is really helpful for not just carbon developers, but all these other opportunities. It's a great filter for us.